and welcome to your new headlights. Today we're going to go over installing any headlights that you bought from us for the 2015 and up Subaru WRX or STI at stage 1, stage 2, or stage 3. So in order to get to the headlights, we are going to have to take the front bumper cover off. The tools we're going to need are going to be a 10mm socket. You can use either a socket wrench or a power tool. You're going to need a flathead screwdriver, obviously the headlights that you bought, as well as the multicolor Bluetooth controller. On top of that, we've also included some dielectric grease and heat shrink that we'll need as well. So the first thing we're going to do is start by taking the top screws and push pins off of this trim piece with a weather stripping. So all you're going to do is just go along the top. We got our 10mm off, and then we're gonna have the 3 push tabs. I'm missing one in the middle, so don't judge me. But for that, all you have to do is just take a flathead, pop that up, and then while you pull this, just kind of wiggle that bottom out. Next up, we're gonna just push in the tab towards the fender here. You're gonna see right in the center of that, there's a little dot. Just push that in, and you'll be able to pull that out. The next thing we're gonna need to do is take off those same push pin style we saw on the top across the bottom. There's gonna be 1 on each side right here towards the wheel. There's gonna be 2 on the splash guard towards the fog light, and then 3 across the center. So once we have the 9 clips along the bottom out, we're ready to pull this bumper off. So a couple things to remember when you're pulling it off. Number 1, the sides are gonna wanna pull up and hit your fender. You don't want that because paint is nice when it's shiny. The next thing to remember is the fog lights and turn signal down bottom are gonna have wires that attach to the car. So as you pull it away, you will see that there's plugs there. Just don't go nuts and rip it off real quick. So it's easier with 2 people, but all you have to do at this point is we're just gonna grab right here, closest to the wheel, and pull kind of out and then forward. So this part should slide over. What we're gonna do now, like I said, is keep this nice and low. Sometimes it'll try to like swing up. And as we pull the bumper away, we're just gonna lift it up, and then as we feel a tension from the wires from the fog light, gently set it down. Now we're ready to take the headlights out. There's gonna be 6 10mm bolts. There's the 2 obvious ones right up top. There's gonna be 2 in this bracket towards the grill, and 2 on the bracket towards the fender. What I usually like to do, get the 4 bracket ones off. That way the headlight is still held in by the top 2. So for those, we're just gonna come to the side. You see right here, and 2. So once we have the 2 screws out, there's also gonna be a push tab here. I took mine out the first time. It doesn't really do a ton, so I left it out. And then we're gonna come around to the front. You may need an extension because the lower one is a little further back. But we're gonna take this first one out. And then the second one is right inside here. From there, the bracket should come off. The way to take that off is you're just gonna pull this back part out, and then it kind of wraps around the front, just like that. So we are gonna reuse these for the new headlights, so we'll put those somewhere safe for now. Lastly, we're gonna do the top 2 bolts, and like I said, just be careful when these come out, the headlight will be loose. So I'm gonna hold it from the front here, and you can go ahead and remove it. So now that we did the driver's side, you can repeat the same exact steps to the passenger side, and we will get the new ones in. So I did just want to mention before we install the new lights, this main bulk harness plug is a little bit of a bear to unplug or uninstall. So what I usually recommend doing is just pushing that top tab down with your left hand or whichever hand and putting it around the headlight side plug. With your other hand, you're just gonna grab around the gray plug on the car side and use your fingers around the wire and just wiggle it back and forth until it comes off. It might be pretty sealed on there. What can happen over time is like road grit and debris can kind of fill that area. So it's a bit hard to get that plug off, but just give it a good grip and rip. Ready to go. So while the headlight's out, you can do this before or after, it really doesn't matter. It's just a little bit easier to film and see it. But this is gonna be the daytime running light module, this little silver kind of ridged box. You're gonna see a plug for it right here above the horn. What that's gonna do is that's gonna take power from the factory daytime running light system, which is typically the high beam for our years, and it's gonna send that power to the headlights. So this Diode Dynamics daytime running light harness should have come with your lights, at least if you chose to. So what this does is it plugs right into that factory connection and then splits. So it's going to have a shorter side for the passenger, the closer headlight, and the longer side, which is going to be for the driver headlight. In order to install this, all you have to do is just literally pull this little top tab up, pull back, and you're just going to plug the new one in. Just like that. So we're gonna go through wiring in just a moment. This box, you could choose to take it out or leave it, doesn't matter, your choice. At this point, we're gonna install our new headlights. Yours should look a little cooler than this. We're just gonna be using this one that we had extra on the shop, but I will be showing you guys exactly what to plug in. So this is gonna plug into the car the same way that the factory ones did. So that just this main plug here, click that in. We're gonna go ahead and line that up to the same bolt holes up top. The one thing to remember when you're lining the headlight up is there is a tab on the side here that needs to go through. There's a hole right above that top bolt. You see that little nub in there? So that does need to come through and sit like that. So once we have that kind of set up there, what I usually do is just kind of loosely put those top two bolts in. Then we're gonna go ahead and just do some of the wiring before we put that lower bracket back in. So the first thing we're gonna do is wire up the diodynamic C lights. So you should see a small bundle of wires. It's just gonna be a red and yellow wire here. So we're just gonna undo that twist tie. Boom. So what these wires do is the red one is going to feed power from the stock daytime running light module to the C light. So that way they turn on when the car is running and the e-brake is down, or if you're a CVT, the car is in drive. And the yellow wire is if you'd like the C light up here to be the turn signal, which is usually lower on the fog light. So the first thing I'm gonna do is the turn signal. For that, you should have a little packet of these T-taps, these little red things. What these do is they just cut into the wire sheathing and then make a connection with this spade inside of that connector. So for that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna find the blue wire, which is going in the turn signal. I do have aftermarket fog and turn signals, so yours might look a little different, but the wiring's the same. You can kind of see right here where I've already had one before. I just wanted to show you guys how to do this. So all you do for this is just place the wire in here. So then we're gonna close this latch, and then usually what I'll do is just take a small set of pliers and get it to clip shut. What that does is that bites into this wire so that there's still a good connection, but we also are able to take power from it. And then simply we're just gonna take this yellow wire plug and we're gonna make sure that metal spade in the middle goes into the slit on top of this red connector. So I'm just gonna pull the bumper a little closer and push it all the way down, just like that. So now we're just gonna take that longer wire from the daytime running light plug and just go over to that driver side headlight and plug the red plug in. So I'm gonna swing around here and we're just gonna make sure that that metal spade inside the purple part goes right in the center of that. So that's it for as far as the C light and the headlight connection goes. So now we have the C light and the main headlight plugged in. We're gonna move on to the multicolored components. You should have a Bluetooth remote. It's either gonna look like this model or it's gonna be the Morimoto XBT, which is the black rectangular one with the carbon fiber trim on it. For this install video, we're just gonna be using this one, but it's the same process for yours. We're just gonna go ahead and take the two wires here. Those are gonna go to the battery. If we look on the other side of the remote, we're gonna see these two little boxes. Yours might be black boxes, but what these are is they're regulators. So they take the raw 12 volts from the battery and dull it down to whatever the needs are of the specific multicolored component you have in the car. So one's gonna go to the driver's side, one's gonna go to the passenger. It doesn't matter which one goes to which, so just choose one and do it. So if you do have the Morimoto XBT or this controller box, this will be the stage 2 and stage 3 setups. You will have more of those regulator boxes. This is for my setup. I pretty much like went all out on mine, so there's a couple different boxes here, regulators, and then we're gonna have a couple different wires. All these are gonna be labeled so you know which ones to plug in, and you'll find the corresponding numbers on the headlight side. Now for these, usually I am gonna zip tie one side and then just twist tie the other. The zip tie one you can use for the driver's side since we won't be needing that much slack. So for the remotes, what we usually like to do is mount them just below the driver's side headlight. Down here is gonna be a bit shielded from the elements. We have the fender liner, we also have the windshield wiper fluid reservoir, and then the front bumper cover. So down here is a pretty good spot to put it. It's also gonna be hidden from the engine bay at car shows and stuff like that. What we're gonna do is if we go right up here, there's a passageway directly to the battery. So we're gonna come right up top now, and we're gonna see those wires just to the right side of the battery. So you can go ahead and grab those and just pull that up. What I'm gonna do for now is just leave these on that post, just so we can kind of hold those there while we work down below. So as far as where you mount this unit, you can either put it right on top of that washer fluid reservoir. If you have like a bracket that you want to make, it's up to you really. You can just zip tie it to some of the wiring down here. More kind of how you'd like to do it. What I would usually do is just try to find a nice spot to zip tie it. So we have the wiring harness here for the fog light and turn signal. It's kind of bolted right to the frame. So what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and zip tie this top and bottom to that wiring. So then on each headlight, right out of the bottom, we're gonna see a single white plug that matches that one. It's gonna have that teal and black wire coating. So we're gonna go ahead and plug these in. Now we also did include that dielectric grease and heat wrap, so let me show you how to put that on before we go any further. So we're gonna go ahead and just rip the top off that dielectric grease. What this does is it's gonna fill any of the space that's inside this connector with that grease. So what that does is just keep any sort of water out. Some telltale signs of water being inside the connectors are gonna be your multicolor components staying lit even after you turn them off, as well as colors not quite matching up right, and just other kind of weird stuff that affects only one or two of the units that are inside the headlight themselves. So it is important. That's really the only part right here that's not sealed up. The regulators and the remotes are fully water sealed. So what we're gonna go ahead and do for this is this heat wrap here is glue lined. So it's gonna be a little sticky on the inside. What I like to do is just kind of fold it in half the opposite way so you get kind of a square there. And we're just gonna go ahead and put the controller side through. So once that's through there, we see the little metal pins. That's the important part. We're just gonna load up inside of that connector with that grease. You can be pretty generous. Then what I like to do is just pull the heat wrap up a little bit before I connect the headlight side plug into there. There is a top and bottom for this. There's that lock tab. So just make sure you see where that lock tab is on the connector inside of here. We're gonna go ahead and press that in until we hear it click, and then we're gonna go ahead and slide that heat wrap up. And you can kind of use your fingers to see and make sure that that connector is right in the center here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just evenly spaced. Now the cool stuff about this is once we heat this up, either with a heat gun, hair dryer, even a lighter will work fine, is that glue is going to heat up as well and kind of smush out. And that really makes sure not only that we have a solid connection between these two plugs, but also it's gonna help keep other elements out of this connector, which is very important. So now that we have our DRL wire crossed over the driver's side, our multicolor wire crossed over to the passenger side, we're gonna go ahead and just secure these to the car so they don't wobble around, and make sure they're tucked in so you can't see them with the bumper on. The best place we found to do this is just running it right across the bottom of the radiator support. So down here you're gonna see the horn, you get a little cross radiator support, and then these little foam things. So we're just gonna run this across and then just find a good spot to zip tie the wires down. What I would recommend is we're gonna wanna keep a little bit of slack on this DRL wire. We're gonna put that up in that foam. There's a bracket right here for that horn. So we're gonna go ahead and grab a zip tie. Just secure this here. And then we can also do one either right across this Y bracket, or there's a little bracket for the bottom of the AC condenser. Cool, we'll snip the ends. And that's gonna be hidden once the bumper's on. So the last thing that I would say is you will get a little bit of excess wire when you're doing this stuff. So this DRL wire, we have probably a good like 1.5 foot extra for the driver's side and some extra for passenger as well. I would definitely recommend just kind of like lumen this up just like that and just zip tying it. Once again, anywhere it'll do. I'm probably just gonna zip tie it right to that DRL module, and that's gonna give us enough slack for the passenger side headlight once we install it. Then we see here the multicolor wire, I'll be able to reach that passenger side headlight just fine. If you have an HID kit that you purchase with the headlights, you're gonna have this HID ballast, the Circuit Demon logo on it, and you're also gonna have the 3 wires that come out of the back of the low beam. Now, if they're not down here, they're probably just behind the low beam projector, so you can just kind of pull them down. This is where we're gonna wanna mount the ballast. Number one, it's not gonna be visible from the top of the engine bay, which is important for general wire management. And it's also gonna keep some of these components away from other stuff that could get warm, etc., etc. For these, you're gonna see 3 very unique connectors. on either side. This should match. So all we have to do is plug these individual connectors together. These are called amp connectors. And then we have our ballast input connection, which is this blue and white one that plugs right in there. As far as where to mount this, the best place, what I typically recommend is we have these little loops right below where that bracket usually mounts. Those are very accessible and out of the way. So you can either use a zip tie here, or what might be a better and stronger idea is to just get a small nut and bolt. And if you feel like you could, drill a small hole there for the other one. If not, a zip tie is gonna be just fine. You can also zip tie these wires to the washer fluid motor down there, and that'll be good. As far as the other wires, you could just tuck those or zip tie those where you'd like to, but the ballast here is the real big part. We just want to make sure it's secure, so that's a good spot for it. So the ballast for the passenger side, it looks a little different here, this bracket, but there are still some holes we can use to mount. Use a zip tie here. Once again, what would be really best is if you were to drill holes for this to sit there, but zip ties would be just fine, just to make sure this doesn't flail around and go anywhere. So now that we're all done with the wiring, it's time for a quick wardrobe change, and we're ready to reassemble. Cool, so with the headlights that we did for the shop car here, we actually have 4 multicolored components, and then we also have the sequential sea light. So the process is the same as far as routing the wires across. As you can see here, we have our extra wire just kind of loomed up with a zip tie there. We have our extra DRL and turn signal wiring also kind of held up there. And then if we look across the radiator support like we talked about, we kind of have it tied up right there, as well as right over here, that horn bracket. So nice and tucked in. There's no like extra loose wires kind of flowing all over the place. So now that we have all that set, what we want to do is go ahead and test it out, make sure everything works before we button the car back up. Alright, so at this point we're ready to go ahead and try this stuff out. If you look in the box, you're going to see a little bit of literature here. If you have the Morimoto XBT controller, you're going to have the sheet that says welcome to your XBT equipped headlights. If you have the Magic Blade or Howdang, it's going to say that. So we're going to first go through the XBT and then we'll move to the other apps. Alright, so as far as the information on the sheet, I'm going to let you guys go through that and see it yourselves. I just want to show you what to expect when you're connecting. So we're just going to open the Morimoto XBT app, and then it may prompt you automatically, or you may have to go here, those top 3 lines, and pair a new device. We're going to pair a controller and just hit continue now that we know that the power is on. If the headlights are on, that means that the power is going to the remote. It's in the initiation phase. So we're going to continue, and then we don't have to hold it on the remote, but just close. I know it's just below this driver's side headlight, and there we go. So if you have an Android device, you are going to need to enable your location services and permissions in the phone settings. If you don't do that, it will not connect. So now that we're ready for party time, we can go ahead and just select whichever channels we want to. So let's go. So we see channel, our output 1 is pink. We have that little white square around it. If we want to select channel 2, we can select the tone. So if we want it lower or higher. Higher is going to be more white, low is going to be the pure color, and then we can see we also disengage that. If we want to change both at the same time, we just select both of those and choose the colors. So once again, deselect, you're just changing one, select, you're changing both. And then as far as turning them on and off, the power button's gonna be right down here. So we have off, and if we want to turn them on, you just turn them on. There's some other features that I'm gonna let you guys kind of play with yourselves. All right, so the last thing I just want to talk about with this is gonna be the favorite setting. So what that allows you to do is create whatever color combination you want and be able to save it by hitting the heart. So if you're at a car show, I have a couple different presets here. Say that I really like this one when I'm in a car show. I can apply that automatically, and that way it's exactly the same shades and colors that I wanted. And then we can go right back to that other one by applying to all as well. The other thing I want to mention with this is creating a legal driving mode. So the reason we say that is a lot of areas, if you have a color besides white or amber, it's illegal to drive with. What we're gonna do is just turn the tone all the way up, and that way it's pure white. The other thing I would recommend as far as driving with your low beams on is turning your demon eyes off. So we just unselected channel 1 and 2 of my demon eyes are on channel 3, and we're gonna turn the tone on those all the way down. That's gonna turn those off. So that way when we're driving around with our low beams on, those demon eyes are staying nice and cool, and that way in the daytime or it shows, we can go ahead and have those on blast. Reselect all 3 channels and hit the save button, and that's gonna be my driving mode. So if I'm in a show, I'm partying on, If I want to leave and be legal, I'm going to apply that driving mode we created and be good to go. So that's the Morimoto XPT. If your lights came equipped with the Magic Light, Diode Dynamics, or the How Dang app, you're just gonna go ahead and follow the sheet. It's gonna be very similar to what you just saw, just the controls are gonna be a bit different. The one thing to remember with these is you have to pair to the app within 60 seconds of it being plugged into power. So if you put it on the battery and the demon eye or the whatever other accents turn on, you have to pair to it within 60 seconds. If you don't, just take it off the battery for a moment and put it back on. It just has that 60-second initiation phase. After that, it locks you out. All right, so now that all the fun stuff's over, it's back to the nitty-gritty. So now that our headlights are in, we're gonna go ahead and put that bracket back on. The best way to do this is start up front. You are gonna see that little tab on the front headlight bracket. That's gonna go right underneath the bolt there. So there's a little window for it. So we're just gonna go ahead and pop that on. And then as we go around the side of the headlight, we're gonna see that little tab above the top screw again. You're gonna wanna make sure that it lines up with this bracket. If you don't, it may push the bracket out, causing the bumper not to line up. So now we have both brackets on the headlights. The wiring's looking good. Everything's tested and working the way that it should. We're ready to put the bumper back on. What I find, especially if you're working solo, the best way to put the bumper back on is we're just gonna align the top here before we put that bracket on. I'm just gonna put the center push pot in and lock it. That's gonna make sure the bumper doesn't slide off while we're trying to get everything set in. The big thing as far as fitment goes, you're gonna have trouble with are the 3 tabs on the center underneath the front bumper. Those need to go over the bottom tray. So you'll see, if I try to push it in right now, it's not gonna wanna go all the way in because those brackets are stuck. All you have to do is just pull these brackets down a little bit as you go along. Cool, so we got the front bumper back on. I did put one of the push pots in the center underneath just to hold it in place, and then we have the fender clips kind of snapped in. We're just gonna take that push pot out of the top and then replace this bracket. And then what I'd recommend doing is replacing the 3 push pots in this top part before you put the screws in. That's just gonna help make sure it's all lined up. So the last step is just gonna replace the push pots underneath, and then we're all done. So thank you guys so much for your support. If you guys have any questions or comments, or if you wanna send us photos when they're all installed, we'd love to see that. That'd be great. Until next time.